Alright, hello everyone. It is Umber Rays here. Having changed my microphone settings recently because of live stream stuff, so hopefully it's going well. Voice is a little low lately because, new apartment. I think I've explained that enough, but just in case you've missed it, maybe you're just here for the amazing review of Jume. That's who we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking at her in a few different party compositions just to see what her stats are, because when it comes to Jume, there's a very obvious comparison that I think everybody is going to be curious about, and that is against Mont. UR Mont has kind of been the staple tank for a long time. Engelbert has kind of come, and there's quite a few compositions on the JP side now that just don't even run a tank because why bother? Most of the time, tanks are too slow, they're not good on certain maps, they end up getting there late, and then they just kind of die without support. So, you know, tanks are not necessarily in the best place. So here we have a brand new character. Let's bring her in. This is Jume, and this is her with a fire team, which I think is fair. I think it's fair in this for an initial look because we're curious about Mont versus Mont at some of his best stats, and there's some questionable stuff here with the friend unit and exactly what we're supposed to get out of June. And I feel really like June is missing a very key Esper to make her great. I mean, I guess you can run her with Golem, or you could potentially run her with the other defensive Espers, but it's kind of this weird middle ground for her. So yeah, let's get into it. I won't talk too much just yet about my thoughts on her. So first of all, as you can see with this build, and we will take a look at her with a wind build too, but wind is kind of missing some good vision cards to shore up a really good defensive strategy, I feel like. So, but even if taking a look at her with even, the Tetra card, and as you can see for an Esper, Odin 3-star max, this is basically what you're looking at, about 8,000 HP, which is a really good amount of HP. Attack is about 1,000, defense is 43, her speed is 103, which is massively better than Mont. And dexterity is 302, luck 318, and she is running a passive that gives her a jump boost. Just to switch over to Mont really quickly in this fire team, Mont is something to note too is that Mont's sword, for my Mont specifically, I never did finish farming the pure fire sword, so he doesn't have quite as good of a weapon as she does. Just to flip back, as you can see, so that is a consideration here. But again, looking at Mont, one of the big standouts is Mont's speed is considerably lower. And I do mean that. He is considerably lower speed than our new counterpart. But taking a look at HP, Mont does end up being pretty much higher. And there really isn't as you can see here, if you look at the vision cards, the only vision card that is giving a fire bonus right now is the Ifrit card. The Ifrit card is not giving any kind of a bonus to, you know, wind units. So, and there isn't any vision card here that's really giving a bonus to wind. I don't know. Odin's ice, if I remember correctly. So, taking another look at Mont, Mont has this superior HP, and given the current build too, a higher amount of defense, but we'll get into her ability, June's abilities, to see how that compares. Mont does have the speed boost, and June, from what I remember, well, again, we'll take a look at her kit, so that is something to consider. Dexterity is a little bit higher, and so is luck. So I think that comparing the two units just on base stats, they're comparable. I don't feel like one really takes advantage of the other. While June has a high amount of attack for a great sword user, it doesn't feel like she has a considerably higher amount of attack than Mont. And defense-wise, just looking at pure stats without buffs or anything, Mont kind of comes out on top. but again, one is running Odin and one is running Golem. So there is a little bit of difference there, and yeah, that's definitely a consideration. That's not what I was looking for. We were going to just pop over here and take a look at resistance. So Mont, very good against spears, very good against slash, even good against gunners, not so good against strike, and, decent versus magic. Not amazing, but decent. Flopping over to take a look at our new lady in the game, which is a strange way to say it, but there you go. She is very comparable to Mont. 25% on her slash, 30% with Pierce, 13% with shooting, and kind of the reverse situation where here she is weak to magic, but kind of neutral against fists. And I think that is pretty big consideration because of what element she has to counter against. If you take a look at Mont being weak to strike, I mean, what is there for options for water strike right now? Not really a ton of stuff. Whereas you look at Jume has kind of a consideration against a specific ice unit, and Valentine Solir, I think, is a big consideration for how well this unit will do. Going over to look at the ice element for a second here. Gilgamesh is also still a character that does pop up. Medina, I don't think we really have to worry about her too much. There have been hints in some of the side stories that there is an ice mage or two potentially in the future. So I'm curious about how well June does. I mean, against slash units, yeah, she'll probably do just fine. But she also has a weakness, to frostbite, which is a big consideration because as a purely physical tank, and not having really much in the way of frostbite resistance, I think she has like 10%. The ice element kind of could shut her down. Being frostbitten, losing her AP, losing access to her abilities, because, with tanks, sometimes you want to run more defensive TMRs to give them that kind of boost. And June's TMR is a very, very defensive TMR, and a pretty nice one at that. One that I think is definitely considered, a strong consideration for what you want as an equipment loadout. So let's just head back here. We're going to bring back June. Let's actually switch over to my wind party. So see if she really gets much of a change. I don't think she will. I think she's going to be pretty much comparable. Like I said, wind is kind of missing some key vision cards and definitely a key summon. Like, I'm not saying that I want to see another slash-based summon because feels like we have too many already, but it would be nice to see a pure wind elemental summon that is physical-based to give a boost to June, or maybe a wind defensive summon, but something new in terms of vision card, and potentially a summon has to show up before I'm super convinced about this unit. And, next week is a vision card week, and I think that will be a strong consideration for her. TMRs, 364 HP, 5 speed, 12 critical avoidance. It should be noted that Jume is not an evasion unit, but she does have a good way of generating critical evasion. Not a ton, and I don't think it's going to be it's going to make this unit the most powerful thing ever, or complete counter against critical units. It's just a way that she can potentially protect herself. But the TMR is definitely nice. I mean, a speed boost is always good, and that is contributing to her speed right now. But even then, just evasion is pretty good. All right. TMR, though, of course, is very important. This is a 3-turn double use ability that gives a boost to defense and spirit of 20 each for 24 TP. Pretty TP cost effective, and it's TP cost effective. It generates AP, and it gives her defense and spirit, but it is an enhancement, and I do feel that there are a lot of units lately that have the Dispel buff, like even thinking about Miranda recently, And, Eldara is coming out as well. And could it be that we just see more and more? Water is not necessarily strong against wind, but it's also neutral, so it could be potentially good. And with this unit's weakness to magic, that could be dangerous. Another defensive-ish unit that could go toe-to-toe with her, where she's, dealing physical damage like Miranda, would have a big advantage and be able to cancel out her TMR, which is pretty much one of her main sources for spirit. So yeah, that might not end up working out so good for her. All right, but of course, what about jobs? Well, Dragoon has a move and jump boost. It has some damage abilities. It has a way to decrease bravery and a way to increase her attack. I think that in general, it's pretty unremarkable as Dragoon. I don't think that she has anything that really contributes too much here, and I don't think she has a way to really leverage the jumps and not make the casting time a problem. So I think Dragoon, for the most part, unless you're running for attack buff, which is I think Dragoon is pretty worthless here as in terms of options. As for Nightblade, Nightblade is a bigger possibility to be run. It does have increased pierce and missile resistance. Pierce was not a problem for her, neither was missile. So I don't know how well. This makes her more specialized against certain damage types, but it doesn't help her against her weaknesses. So this is either, very situation specific, whether you want to be running this or not. She has the stun ability, absorb AP, the damage around her, and the AoE with a little bit of range that decreases healing power. She did not get HP regeneration from Nightblade. I have to say that if it wasn't for the stun, the AP absorb, and the resistance increase, I would not even take a second look at Nightblade. But as it stands, I also don't think it's really interesting, and I think it's dubious to potentially run it. Taking a look at the sub part of her main job, and probably the reason why you want to just run her as, her own job. First ability increases slash resistance, penetration for 3 turns for allies, and increases critical evasion for allies by 30. Slash resistance is only by 20, but it's still enough that she will be boosting an entire sword team that gets this boost. Her second ability is kind of just a damage dealer. It is an AoE, and it does decrease attack and magic by 40% for 3 turns. That's good. But is it good enough? Maybe. I think the first ability is better. It's a solid team buff for sword units. And for a tank, sometimes just them being able to do a buff is good enough support. And it's nice too. All right, taking a look at her main job though, because this is where most of her abilities are going to come from. First of all, you can see here, decrease single target resistance by 30 for 3 turns, 126 modifier, a little bit of range on it. Nice. Don't think it's amazing, but definitely nice. She does have some AoEs in her kit, so I don't know if that ability is going to play nice with her AI. That will require some testing. All right, what else does she have? She has a buff ability that gives her hate generation. That's one of the major things we were looking for in her kit. Also grants her shell and protect, which is nice. Gives her a little more survivability. But again, there are a fair amount of dispel effects out there lately, especially recently. So I don't know if this is going to be game. I don't think this will be game breaking. I just think it's potentially nice. She has a reduced physical damage taken by 30% for 3 turns on a different ability. Where is? There it is. And also increases her defense penetration by 40. This is incredibly important for her DPS and boosts her to being a much better DPS than Mont. This also is just, you just want to run this. Again, dispel effects, but with hate generation, she is going to draw dispel effects too. All right, so that's all nice. But then, now we're going to get into some of her bigger abilities. which I don't think I've memorized where each one is yet, so bear with me. Well, I do believe this is the one we want to look at. So this one is a reduced chance for counter by 100 for 3 turns. So basically shuts down counters. A 205% modifier, so big amount of damage. And it does absorb 30% of the damage done. This makes up for Nightblade not having that ability, and that's totally fine. 30% of damage done. If she can deal enough damage, this could be a pretty good source of healing. 28 AP is a little expensive, 28 AP is a little expensive, but it's not too bad. All right, this ability is our next one and one of our upgrades. So it's a 165% modifier. Getting her into EX will upgrade it. 100% chance to hit is the upgrade, so it becomes a sure hit AoE that decreases agility by 20% for 3 turns to targets. This is her big move, in my opinion, and a very, very strong one. I think a 20% agility decrease is definitely noticeable for 3 turns, and the fact that it's sure hit is also notable. It's just a really, really strong ability, and this is probably one of the strongest things in her entire kit. Taking a look at her job level 25 one for getting her max. You want her max for the stats because she's a tank. 165 modifier, increase single target attack resistance, or increase single target resistance by 25 for 3 turns itself. This is a good ability, but again, it doesn't synergize with her decreasing single target resistance on one of her base abilities. So much of her stuff seems to be AoE, especially her more powerful stuff, and I think her AI is going to do that. So I think her AI could be a little clunky. But, maybe you just change the AI so it's not doing some of those abilities and you're perfectly fine. There's definitely power and potential there. As for her counter, the only one we're really going to talk about is the new one. Chance to counter physical damage. Reduce the physical damage taken by 45%. So, great against physical, but she really has nothing in her kit to protect her against mages. Mage damage is going to hit her and is going to hit her pretty hard. I'd be worried about I think that mages is a huge blind spot in her kit, and if you build her to be too strong against mages, you're kind of taking away from what her being a really good physical tank. Might be good enough, might not matter, but I don't know. Comparing that to Mont's, just because I have the numbers here, Mont only reduces his damage by 30%, where she is 45. So her counter is way better than Mont's is by a pretty big margin. And that, I think, makes up for the HP difference, but only in regards to physical damage. If there's magical damage, I think it's fair game. As for her support skills, she has the... I was looking at Mont. That was almost a mistake. Dragoon gives her an HP increase and a jump increase. The HP might be good, but I don't know if it's super worth having. As for her other ones, we'll think that this one... So this is her jump up and agility increase. This is one of the reasons why she has such high agility. Again, it's good. She can get in the front. She can generate hate. So she'll be a prime target. That's something you want your tank to do. So I think that's nice. Her Nightblade one is the attack up, accuracy up, decrease evasion. It's okay. I don't think it's great, but because I think she has enough self buffs for damage dealing in her kit that you don't need to run the Nightblade. But if you were trying to get more physical damage out of her, you could definitely do it. Now, as for her primary one, the one that I skipped over here, this is an upgraded one into EX. So originally it's just a defense increase, but the increase effect by 5% for each damage you take for a max of 15. So yeah, her getting hit, if her counter procs, she receives less damage, she survives more, she can potentially regen HP, and this ability is one of the things that feels new and interesting. This is a very strong defensive ability. Does nothing against magic, but magic is her blind spot, and that's fine. This also upgrades in her EX to give her more slash resistance, basically a similar effect, and more pierce resistance, starting out at 10% when the ability is maxed, and increasing by 5% for each time you receive damage. So if we look at her, what we'd be looking at here, that's an extra 25% for each. So she is a pretty strong shutdown against other swords and other pierce, but that's it. I don't think that she's going to be very reliable against Fist if an Ice Fist user comes along. But mages and Valentine Saria, who is a unit that is somewhat pretty common at high tier PvP here on the JB side, for, especially now with this wind unit thing, I think that she will be reasonably countered, if not good enough countered. I would be interested in potentially making a multi-element team with her. If you put her on a team with Mont, where you have a fire tank and a wind tank, and then you put a third unit in the back, is that team just really defensive against ice units and potentially protect Jume enough? I don't know, but I'd be interested to find out. So yeah, I'm gonna give just to wrap up this review, because this review is definitely a long one, because there's a fair amount to talk about here. Limit Burst increases her slash attack by 35 for 3 turns to self. It's a big AoE, and it's a high damage dealing as Limit Bursts are. This is just a strong part of her kit for sure. So I think overall, my recommendation for building is just basically everything that is her main job. You want her main job as like everything you're running. Maybe Nightblade if you want a little bit of extra resistance to really shut down specific teams. Her passives are just so good. Her support skills are just so good. Her counter is just so good. But she is primarily a physical unit that deals physical damage, that is good against other physical units. And Ice Magic is a very clear counter, and I think can do enough to keep her from being too much of a problem. But she is definitely strong. Heck, I even think Black Witch Helena could probably, take this girl in a fight pretty easily, just because Shadow as an element is just so powerful. But she will be a force to be reckoned with. She is a fast unit, and with that being, and I do give her a very strong recommendation, because I do think she is very powerful and comparable when you look at the entire picture to Mont. UR Mont, not basic Mont. So yeah, the only other thing to consider for globalers that I do want to say, this unit does not have like a very long banner. The banner is essentially 7 days. You don't have a lot of time if you want to get the unit. The shards are permanently in the pool, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, you should note that you do need to get the unit in a short period of time. There is no 9-step. And I know that seems like I've come out as being very anti-best banner, but I don't really have a follow-up to that. I looked at this unit fairly, and I think that she is a very powerful unit. I think all of the best units going forward will be very powerful units. And do I think that this unit, I guess the last thing I really want to say is, I don't think that this unit is a complete power creep, but I definitely think that she is specifically strong. So, and I guess in the question of whether I think her or Mont are better, Mont has some status effects. Mont is less weak to a key status effect like Frostbite that is popping up more and more. But this girl has some really good defensive abilities. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna. I think I'm so divided about whether or not I think Vermont are better, but I'm probably going to say Mont is better as a general recommendation because he's a permanent unit in the pool and not a best unit. But I can see a lot of potential in Jume, to be sure. Anyway, let me know what you think after I've talked way too long. Do you like Jume? Do you think she's better than Mont? Or do you think that she is not worth the cost of best banners? Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time.